income disparities in those cities. Nairobi is one of the cities, and it ranks among the 10 worst cities when it comes to income disparities. It's in the same league as Bangkok and Shanghai and all those eastern cities. The dimension of Tatu and Konza is also important because we have a plethora of what they call golf course communities coming up. Right? On the road to Thika and Naivasha and other places. Now, those create very elitist communities, which are good in a way, because people have the money to be able to spend it, it creates investment, it creates jobs, and so on. But also their planning should be integrated with the overall planning system. And finally, I want to talk about open spaces. The open spaces in Nairobi are disappearing. Now, our people who cannot afford to enjoy, City Park and Uhuru Park and so on. If you go to Eastlands, to Buruburu, to Umoja, there are hardly any places for children, for old people, for families, and so on. Again, last year we were involved in a citywide assessment or survey of leisure perceptions and leisure expenditure in Nairobi. And the results are appalling because people are prepared to spend money, but then even if you want to go to a park, you have fare for the for the matatu. It takes probably hours to get outside Athari and Buruburu and so on and so forth. And in any case, the young people said, look, why should I go to City Park or Uhuru Park when there are malls all over? I can go to a shopping mall and have a good time. Which, again, it appears that in this country, every new building must be called a plaza. And a mall must have a foreign name. Now, what I'd like to do is to invite Ruth Guru from City Hall to come and tell us what City Hall is doing. Ruth?
We have embarked on the process of developing the master plan for the city of Nairobi because the last master plan initiative was carried out in 1973. The master plan of 1973 had anticipated a lot of development issues, had dispersed development to various parts of the city to decongest the center. However, during that time, there was no linkage between the planning at the national level and appreciation of spatial planning. Planning has, for a long time, particularly spatial planning, not economic planning, been accorded the attention it deserved in terms of financial allocation, and therefore most of these plans that were prepared in the 70s just remained as plans in the shelves gathering dust. Nature abhors a vacuum, and therefore a lot of sectoral plans came about. Everybody began doing their plan on their own. Therefore, even implementation was a problem. At the same time, other players began springing on board because they felt that the government was not taking its role. We had the governance issues of the 90s when most of the resident associations started forming themselves into active groups, really calling on government to do its work. And arising from this, we had the adopt-a-light and so on and so forth. Housing problems became an issue. And a study that was done around the mid-90s confirmed that more than 50% of Nairobi residents were living in informal settlements. And I haven't seen a study that has come to dispute that figure. In fact, subsequent studies have even increased that figure to 60%. So these, among many other problems, pollution, environmental degradation, led to the city government now, which was the formerly City Council of Nairobi, reaching out to bilateral partners, seeking funding, because the central government had not seen the need to fund this process. And from 1998, because that was the time horizon for the 1973 plan, it was to go up to the year 2000. And therefore, when the people who were in City Hall that time realized that the horizon of the 1973, though not fully implemented, began making efforts. These efforts bore fruit only in 2009, when the government of Kenya engaged the government of Japan, seeking technical support. This continued like for 3 years until last year, July, when the government of Japan was able to extend technical support through JICA to the government of Kenya to undertake a city master plan. And it has not been just a City Hall affair. Some of you already know, although I heard Dr. Esho saying he's not aware of the process having begun. We have invited universities. We have invited all the people that we believe have a stake in this city. Therefore, we embarked in the process in earnest in January and called on board, especially government departments, ministries, and agencies to participate in the process. And we formed 6 thematic working groups. The JICA team had 4 working groups. That's how they had envisioned the process. But when we met as stakeholders, all the key ministries were involved. And also UN agencies and so on and so forth. These include environment. Secondly, we have a thematic group on urban transport. We know how the city has been having issues of traffic congestion and so on. So we are looking into an integrated, multimodal sort of a system where we shall have rail, road, and so on integrated. Then we have infrastructure working group that is quite loaded. It has sectoral issues like power. We know we all don't have to be told about how power has been in this country. We also have the same infrastructure group is also dealing with issues of solid waste management. We are having also the working group on land use and human settlements. We also have a working group on population and urban economy. Of course, we have the metropolitan plan that covers the 32,000 kilometers square. The city is 695 kilometers square, but we cannot just deal with the city without looking at the wider area. However, we are calling on all the stakeholders. Do we want to have a city where, for instance, if we talk of Karen, it's predominantly low density development area? Do we want it to purely remain as a residential area, or are we going to embrace mixed sort of development? So these are some of the issues I just want to provoke your thinking, because these are the hard questions we want the Nairobians and residents of this city to give an input. Governance and institutional arrangements. In fact, the chair of that thematic group, this is not a City Hall affair. Actually, we are having people chairing who are not from City Hall. That particular working group is being chaired by Mr. Elijah Agevi. However, I also want to provoke people, even at individual level. There's a challenge we encounter as we facilitate developers to have approvals. When you people come to us as individuals, not as a forum now here, because I know when we're in a forum here, you will speak a different language. But when Professor Gary comes to my office and wants an approval for his plot in Tasia, for instance, even when I ask him to make a provision for children to play, he wants maybe 20 flats. I'm asking, can you make a provision, at least 10% for the kids who will be in this area, at least to find even just on the plot, open space. They want to negotiate and say, please, that's an extra flat. You know, now land is so expensive in Nairobi. Can you please see how you can help so that at least that open space, we don't have to really provide. It is a requirement that we need to prepare integrated development plans every 10 years. I think City Hall over the years has been demystified, because I know many people would previously hear that you're working in City Hall and look at you with different eyes. But I'm glad that now people have embraced us, because we are working for the same city, we are working for the same country. And as long as communication channels are open, we can do so much for our city and for our future. Therefore, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So now, could I ask Mr. Karuku to ask the question, what if?
I'm a designer by trade, a director of a small company called Urban Savannah Design Studio, also an architect. What if is a self-initiated architecture and design campaign that explores and communicates contemporary, sensible ideas with different settings that affect our daily lives. The campaign showcases design ideas seeking to inspire everyone from architects, stakeholders, designers, developers, investors, visitors, and the average Mwananchi citizen. We should be reminded through What If of our freedom of expression and our need to be creative, particularly when dealing with issues in the African context. This project concentrates primarily on Nairobi's cityscape, investigating critical urban challenges and putting forward a set of design proposals to offer an alternative solution. Each project will focus on a particular aspect of Nairobi's built environment, ranging from cultural and retail centers to parks and bridges. A common component to all these proposals is energy, water, and transport. Lastly, a series of artistic impressions, which you'll see, were exhibited in a recent exhibition in Nairobi. We opted to use billboards rather than go to art galleries. It's not expression of culture as Nairobians to visit art galleries. Our company's goal was to draw in a wide demographic that would allow both the general public as well as potential urban developers to rethink the way we approach built environment in Nairobi, particularly in the urban areas. So our idea was just to put together visual. So we decided to have a visual critique, all about let's discuss as Nairobians what if we had this elevated highway, what if we had a tram system running across Nairobi, or integrated light railway system, broadening our footpaths and introducing cycle lanes. I personally cycle, so at least not very much now in Nairobi, but I'm very keen on cycling as a mode of urban transport. We also looked at this might have been a more eccentric proposal, but again, it's called What If. This is the Nairobi Jomo Kenyatta Airport. We were very keen on integrating the national park with the airport. I think about 60% of the people who come through Nairobi Airport are actually on transit, so they don't get a chance to get out and see Nairobi. So we thought, well, let's bring Nairobi to them. Seeing that we are one of the capitals, one of the only capitals in the world with animals right next door. Another one was we looked at residential high-density accommodation, high-density accommodation in Nairobi. This is we redesigned. I forget the name now. Jamhuri Estate. This looked particularly at energy. I think finally this was a petrol station, the one just next to KCB Kipande. This was a very interesting one. As a Nairobian, the petrol station in Kenya, say Nairobi, has taken on a very different form, possibly to what it started off as or what it is out in the rest of the world. Here, the petrol station has become become a communal space, a communal hub. You go and have your machoma there, you have your car washed, playgrounds, there's a supermarket. So it's become quite a special place for people, right? Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing you're planning, I'm not sure, but it's just taking that as it is right now and saying, why don't we celebrate our petrol stations a bit more as we celebrate our cultures as well and our traditions, and look at how can we have our own identity for a petrol station. If you want more information, you can visit our website, www.watif.co.ke. Thank you very much for your time.
My name is David Kidakia. I don't, and I'm sure Prof doesn't think that the master plan of 1973 was bad. And I don't think that is why it was not implemented. And if we start by saying it was bad, it was not implemented because it was bad, then we are not being scientific as we should be. And I would invite Ruth really to understand the process of planning needs to look at what we had and why we had it the way we had it, and then why it was not implemented. And in fact, indeed, it is being implemented because the bypasses are a product of that. And with all due respect, I think the JICA input could very much be another mask. And I'm saying it could be very much be another mask. So we really need to look at us. What is it we look for? For just another plan? Because I think we have many plans. And in that reference, I would say that the process, and my sister is here, the process hasn't gone bad because sectors were not talking to one another. And in fact, Elia, Debbie, and I, we were involved over the years in getting all the sectors working together. And in the last few years, I worked for UN Habitat, and we engaged Nairobi City Council in the planning process. And we have records of meetings where we made references to the Nairobi we want. And what is our role in this process? Whose process are we participating in? And what stake do we have in it? Why don't we start from what we did? And I will tell you that, and Alfred is here. I tell you, we made, or when I say we, a group of us from the UN, we made a difference in housing in South Africa. And what was important about that, it was one thing we call the Masakane campaign. And it began by our first action was actually to involve the people, not to ask them what they want, is to involve the people. So we miss a point here in Nairobi. When we still continue to do the same things the way we always did them, and expect a different result. Thank you very much.
In everything that we actually touch and do, completely clean and clear. But sir, the presentations are also too really very nice. Without implementing the traffic laws we even just passed, we can have 50 overflights, 50 thicker highways, 150 highways from all over the country here without implementation.